Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Rick, the Honest Mechanic. Thanks for joining me today, and a big special thanks to those 3 people that religiously watch my channel. You know who you are. Anyways, what are we going to do today? Well, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to deal with these chainsaws. Yeah, this is a big collection. Well, I got 3 chainsaws in here. And I've been collecting these over the years. People have dropped them off. Friends and family, don't know if they run. Don't know anything about them. But that's what we're going to tackle today. So if you want to see what I'm going to do with these, stick around. Okay, so like I said, I don't know if they run. I've had some of these as long as 3 or 4 years now, sitting in the back of the shed. The cool thing is, they're all the same. They're all Poulan Pros. As far as I know, they're actually a decent saw. But my objective today is I'm going to try and do my best to take 3 of these Frankenstein saws and make one Frankensaw that runs well. It has to run well. I don't even know where to start. Honestly, I don't know much about these. Like I say, I do mostly still Husqvarna. I do all the other brands, but I'm sure that they're pretty similar. So, let's see. Start with this guy. I don't know why. It's on my right. I guess I'll start right-handed. Let's see if these things. You gotta be kidding me, right? Oh, that's crazy. That's tight. Okay, so this one's got a little bit of gas in it. Whew, doesn't smell too crazy. So this one's got some gas in it, at the very least. Okay, so there's an on-off switch in the back here. Oh, these ones have a primer. So there's a primer. You know what, there's got to be a starting instruction on some of these. Yeah, so there's a starting instruction. Okay, so 6 times on the primer bulb. 5 and 6. Okay, now they say, pull the blue knob, full choke, okay. So I don't have any chain on this, obviously, so I'm not too concerned if it does happen to fire. I doubt it very much, but I want to just at the very least check if there's compression. And you'll be able to feel that if if it kicks back. See, that's not too bad. There's some compression at the very least. I'll take out my gauge, but I'll see if it does actually have some good ones. But let's just, for the fun of it here, see if it starts. Holy crap! That actually runs really, really good. I got some smoke in here now, but okay, that's awesome. So we know this one runs. I was not expecting that, honestly, guys. That is so cool. Okay, so now, well, since we know this one's good, what's the rest of it like? So the air filter is it's not too bad. It's falling apart a little bit at the edges, but maybe a good cleaning. And if you guys have watched some of my previous videos, any of the foam filters, the way you clean these is you just soak them in a little bit of warm water with soapy solution, something like dish soap. And you don't wring these out. You don't clean them in gasoline. That's a myth because they will disintegrate. Nothing too detergency. Like you just want to take some of the dirt out. And you let it air dry. And after it's air dried, you're going to oil it with the proper foam filter oil. And in the pinch, you could use something heavyweight like 80-90, let's say. So that's okay. Obviously the spark plug is firing, but spark plugs are consumable items. So I will probably replace that, or at least at the very least, clean it. And for as good as it runs, I'm going to say the compression is fine. So, okay, well maybe I can just slap the bar on this call it a day and then move on to the other two. I don't know. It's kind of good. Makes me wonder why some of these saws are here though. Like, I mean, why do people drop them off? Always been a mystery, but I actually make a good salesman for Stihl though. I'll tell you that much. Oh, there you go. There's our problem. You guys see that? If I look at it this way, the two studs are different lengths, and the reason for that is because this one is pulling out of the casting. So that's not good at all. Well, that's not a big deal. Obviously we have two other ones, and hopefully the frame on these ones are better. So let's take a look at this one since I don't have any tools out. Let's see. And the other thing obviously I noticed, guys, the brake handle is completely missing on this one, whereas this one is there and it seems to be operating. Actually, that would have been easier done if I was on the saw. Yep, it works. Very, very important. You do not want to run a saw without one of these. You don't want kickback. Okay, so what do these studs look like? Well, these ones look pretty good. Actually, I'm very happy with this one. Okay, well maybe this one starts. I don't know. Okay, well, of course this one's bone dry. And the fuel line is broken in this one. So that's not good. So one thing I have noticed on these smaller poulins, am I saying that right? Poulin? I don't know. I'm going to say poulin. The fuel hose on some of these is like really small. I mean, I'm talking like big spaghetti small. So, yeah, I might actually have some here. Well, this is the size of fuel line that you see in the tank. There's really not much. And what happens is over time, the fuel deteriorates. Actually, the ethanol deteriorates this rubber. And the filter housing, which is weighted in the bottom of the tank, the reason for that is so that when you're using your saw sideways or at any angle, that fuel will pick up, or that filter will pick up the fuel, whichever at the bottom of the tank, whichever way the bottom of the tank may end up being at that moment. Well, the weight of that, because it's always putting some weight, will usually end up breaking it where it goes through the housing and on top through here, because the carburetor sits right here. So it's got a tiny little hole that you got to flex it through, and then it usually breaks right at the tip of that. All right, so that's what we'll do. Let's just check this one out just for fun. See if it's got any compression compared to the other one. Not bad. Not bad. This one's still got a little bit more based off what I'm seeing. And this one, oh, this one, yeah. This one may be seized. Looks like this one may not have survived whatever it was last doing. And judging by what I see here, was very, very dirty, whatever it was, because it looks almost like mud. So it might not have survived. But this one, these two have. Yeah, I'm going to say this one has a little bit less than this one, just based off what I feel. But you know what? Yeah, let's challenge that. Let me come back with a gauge. Okay, so I got my gauge here. I'm going to pull the spark plug out of this one, put it onto here. So normally you're looking for anything over 100 psi. And the best way to do any of these checks as well is with wide open throttle, so you can get the maximum amount of air through the cylinder. It's going to be a little bit hard to do. You guys aren't going to be able to see this gauge, neither will I. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep it here. And it actually holds its reading, so I'll bring it up to the camera after I'm done cranking it over here a couple times. So I'm going to go let's say 3 hard pulls and see where it sits at. I want to make sure it doesn't hit the button. All right. All right, so without touching the button, what do we have? You guys see it? We've got 125. Exactly 125. Okay, so now we know that one's at that. Let's do the same thing. Put that in place. I won't be able to go wide open throttle, but I am going to make sure the choke is off, same as I did with this one. We're going to pull it over 3 times. Okay, without opening it, what do we have? And we have 115. 10 psi. 10 psi. And I felt that. You guys saw it here first. So always believe your mechanic when he tells you. The honest mechanic, so, right? Okay, so we know we have good compression in this guy. This may have been why this one wasn't running as well at one point and why it's part of my chainsaw bin. But I do like that it's got better recoil. I mean, it looks like it's in better shape. So I guess what we're going to be doing, because that one feels seized, like I can't turn this one over, but it's got good parts. I mean, at the very least, I might be able to use it for the bar and the chain, depending on how this one looks. Oh, look at this. That's awesome. This air filter is in much better shape. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a pile of miscellaneous parts here, but since we're not using this one, let's throw this one down here. At least for now. And let's start ripping and tearing. Let's make 2 piles here. Let's make a pile of good and a pile of bad. Okay, moving on. Let's start taking this apart. I've never pulled the engine out of one of these, so we're going to learn together. Okay, so there's one recoil. This one's actually in good shape. I'd use that again. This is where it gets a little bit more fun, because normally you need a special tool. And if you look at the, hopefully I'm close enough to the camera, but right on that clutch housing, there's an arrow and it says off. And these are actually reverse thread, because you want them to be tightening while you're putting torque on these. Because you wouldn't want that to happen the other way, because your clutch would fly out every time, right? So that's what it's doing now, is it's actually, what I'm going to have to do now is lock this cylinder down, or block this so that nothing rotates. And here is a trick. Okay, so I managed to find a chunk of rope. And what you're going to do is you're going to rotate the engine so it's on its way up to compression. You'll actually be able to see the piston moving up on compression. And just before it reaches the top, you're going to take your handy rope and you're just going to fill the top of the cylinder. You're just going to stuff as much of this rope as you possibly can. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting all the resistance on the top of the piston against the cylinder head. And now I'll be able to remove this, hopefully relatively easily, without having to hold the flywheel, which is actually, believe it or not, way more fragile than any of the internals. There we go. So just like that, that'll spin off. Now with the proper tool, actually hold the clutch housing right here. So now I'm going to remove the clutch housing, or the actual clutch with the springs. Now you don't want to lose your roller bearing in here as well, so you want to keep that part of that. What I like to do is put everything back together just like a sandwich. We're going to remove the oil pump out of the way, and after that we're going to take these out. Okay, where are you going? Just like that. Take the 4 screws out. Let's pop this ignition wire off. Wiring's out of the way. I totally forgot about the throttle cable as well. That has to be dealt with. So, alright, so what do we have here? Just a simple trigger mechanism. There we go. And apparently, those 4 bolts also house the bottom end of the engine. This cylinder is actually in really, really good shape. Cool. Okay, so now let's get this out. We're going to put this onto a clean rag over here, right behind us. So now, this is what we're left with, which is basically a handle, a primer ball, and a coil. Okay, so the body is mostly clean and mostly dry. We dry it off a little bit here, but it's a lot better than it was. Makes things easier to put back together. But before we can go back together, there's a few things I need to tackle. This little fuel line that is broken. Both of these pieces were together at one point. But it's very plasticky now, and it's not supposed to be that way. So I'm going to throw in another piece with another filter, and that's the size of the hole that you have to run it through. It's a bit of a pain. Take your time. You're going to feed it through there, and then you're going to take the end of the hose coming out here through the hole of the gas cap, and then after that you're going to put the fuel filter on it. So you want this fuel filter to actually be in the bottom of the tank, and it doesn't matter at what attitude this chainsaw is going to be, like I was mentioning earlier. So let's go ahead and get that hose in place. Okay, so we're partly together now. I've got the cylinder back into the frame. I've got some of the stuff like the choke cable back in place. I've got the fuel line routed. And something about this fuel line as well, guys, be very patient about this. Take your time, don't rush it because you will get frustrated. And I like to cut the end of it. You're going to end up wasting a little bit of it, but cut it at a long angle, maybe a 45 or more. Get it through the hole, and don't open up that size hole. Whatever hole it is, leave it there, because this hose needs to be interference fit in that hole to be able to pressurize that fuel tank. So let's carry on. We're almost there. I'm going to throw the bottom bolts back in place before my sealant dries up. And a little bit more just for... Seems good to me. Alright. Getting close. So I'm going to put the new filter in place because I don't want any more dirt to fall in there. So that's good. Now, since we're on this side, let's place the oil pump. Okay, now we can do the reverse of that sandwich I was talking about. So our big washer goes down first, then our basket, and then finally the clutch itself. And I'm just going to do that hand tight, because honestly guys, there's no need to really put much on there. If you want, you can give it a bit of a wrap with, put the plug in, give it a bit of a jerk, but I'm not going to worry about it because like I said, when these are running, you actually want to stay tight. We're moving on to the back, put our throttle cable in place, put our mechanism, yeah, just like that, okay. Put this cover back on before I mess that up. All right, so that's good. Very nice. We can put our spark plug back in place so that again we don't have any garbage going down the cylinder. Starting to look like a saw again. Next we're going to put our little clip here that holds the wires in place onto the cylinder head. There we go. Now it's safe, it's away from all the rotating assembly. Now we can move on to our manual recoil. Alright, next is I'm going to put here our bolt back in place for the top engine mount. Okay, so now let's take a look at this chain. And this chain is definitely going to need a sharpen. So let's do that. So our chain is nice and sharp. So we're almost there. We just need to put the cover back on and put the bar on. So let's do that. You know what? I just realized something. I said earlier in the video that I was going to use all 3 saws and do something with them. So far I've only used 2. Gotta be something else I can use. Yeah. Okay. I think this bar looks better than this one. So, how about we swap out the bar? Now, hopefully this chain is the right length, because I forgot that. I might have to sharpen a second chain, but that's okay. Doesn't take very long. There we go. Let's remove the chain and let's just see if they are the same length. And of course, they are not. So, I'm going to sharpen the other chain as well, so that I can use the original bar. Okay, so here we are. We got the second chain sharpened up, but I have to admit, I think I like this chain better, but a promise is a promise. I said I was going to take parts from 3 to make 1. That's what we're doing. So worst case scenario, we know that this chain and this bar are actually going to be a good trade up. I mean, you got to remove the bar to get to the chain anyways, so it might just be a quick, easy swap that way. Let's grab our saw. Let's put their logo upright, but you guys know that it doesn't matter, right? You can either run the bar this way, or you can run it upside down if you start to see wear on one side or the other. And make sure you always put the chain on correctly too. You want the sharp side of the teeth at the front. Then we can go ahead and put our, oh, you know what? This cover may look nice, but there's no adjustment. No adjustment screw in there. That's not any good. But look at that. This one does. So see, I would have in fact used a part from all 3. There you go. Now here's another trick that I like to do. So I like to put these on hand tight. Now this may be why this one had broken studs, because it does happen from time to time where, if you don't know, you'll over tighten these very, very easily. So I'm just, as you can see, as I tighten up this adjustment screw, the chain tension comes up, right? But you also see that there's some play up and down, right? So if I leave it as it is, let gravity do its thing, the very first cut I'm going to do with the vibration and the pressure of me pushing on the saw, it's going to push this down, or sorry, it's going to bring up that bar, and watch what happens to the chain. You guys see that over there? Let's move my screwdriver so you can see it. Watch what happens to the bottom of that chain. It gets loose every time. So you start to use the saw, you're thinking, well, darn it, these must have got loose again. Tighten them up a little bit more, tighten them up a little bit more, until, well, you actually pull them out of the housing. So what I like to do is I like to either put something underneath the chain and the bar to ensure that I've got that bar up as high as it can go. And then I'll make my adjustment. And I like to adjust them. Everybody's got their own preference. But I like to adjust them so that when I'm pulling up on the chain, I can only barely see the bottom of one tooth, not multiple. Okay, now with this tension as it sits, I will tighten up these nuts so that nothing moves. Then it will be ready to run. Alright, all we have to do now is see if this actually works. Let's see if it starts. And there you have it, guys. FRANKÖNSAW. Works really well. I'm very impressed. I'm going to end the video here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. All I need to do now is clean up this big mess.